Ladies and gentlemen, war is not only written by regular divisions, armored brigades, or maps thick with arrows. In the shadows of every front line, there exists a class of men rarely spoken of: mercenaries. They come from different countries, speak different languages, carry different pasts, but all share a single contract: trading their blood and their lives for money. Their names rarely appear in history books, yet their deaths are counted in body bags scattered across foreign lands. Some were once workers, teachers, or truck drivers. Others were former soldiers, veterans hardened by battlefields in Iraq, Syria, or Afghanistan. There were even convicts, released early with the promise of redemption through war. They left their homes not for ideals, not for patriotism, but for survival, money, or simply the thrill of violence. Each one signed a contract with a cold line of ink, but behind that signature was a sentence of death. At the training grounds of Yavoriv in western Ukraine, hundreds of foreign volunteers gathered in the early months of war. They carried with them backpacks filled with hope, smartphones buzzing with messages to their families, and the illusion that they would be heroes in someone else's country. Some believed they were fighting for democracy, others for adventure, and many simply for the paycheck promised at the end of each month. But reality introduced itself with fire and steel. A sudden rain of missiles struck Yavoriv one dawn, turning tents, barracks, and dreams into ashes. Many never even fired a shot before becoming casualties. Survivors stumbled out, stunned, faces smeared with dirt and disbelief. Those who stayed behind learned quickly to dig trenches, to sleep with death at their side, to eat in silence under the howl of sirens. The war was not a video game, not a banner of justice. It was raw survival. Across the battlefield, another machine of recruitment operated with cold precision. Russia's Wagner Group and other private military companies like Redutat. Their scouts prowled the prisons, offering inmates a bargain written in blood: 6 months at the front for a chance at freedom. Murderers, thieves, drug dealers suddenly found themselves dressed in camouflage, clutching rifles, sent into the furnace of Bakhmut and Soledar. They were the expendable waves, thrown against fortified Ukrainian positions with the promise of a pardon if they lived long enough. But most did not. The tactic was brutal yet effective. Bodies of the fallen paved the way for those behind them. Death became currency. Freedom became bait. In this cruel trade, men were nothing but ammunition. The front lines bore silent witnesses to these expendable lives. Fields near Bakhmut were littered with corpses, many without identification. Forensic units later discovered tattoos, fragments of passports, dog tags from half the globe: American, British, Canadian, Georgian, Polish. In makeshift morgues near Kharkiv or Lviv, rows of black plastic bags were stacked, each tagged with a flag that did not belong to the soil it rested on. A call was made, a curt message sent to families: your son, your husband, your brother will not return. Behind the official words was a deeper truth. He died in a war that was never his. The international conventions of law offered little shelter for these men. The Geneva Conventions, guardians of prisoners of war, did not recognize mercenaries as legitimate combatants. To be captured was to be branded not as a soldier, but as a criminal. The Donetsk People's Republic made the message clear when 3 foreign fighters were sentenced to death in 2022. Their images circulated in handcuffs, eyes hollow with fear. The world gasped, but the law of the battlefield was merciless. A mercenary captured alive carried no shield of honor, only the weight of a death sentence. Many of their comrades knew this, and so they fought harder not for victory, but simply to avoid falling into enemy hands. Yet for all their expendability, mercenaries brought with them skills and gaps that could not be ignored. Some were seasoned medics who had once patched wounds in Afghanistan. Others were drone operators, veterans of Middle Eastern deserts, who now taught Ukrainian soldiers how to track Russian convoys from the sky. Snipers from Canada, engineers from Britain, demolitions experts from Georgia. They injected knowledge into the Ukrainian ranks. But knowledge does not erase motive. Unlike soldiers fighting for their homeland, mercenaries fought for contracts, bonuses, and promises of payment that sometimes never arrived. In the mud of Donbass, ideals burned away quickly, leaving only exhaustion, suspicion, and the question, was it worth it? Among their belongings often lay letters, crumpled papers, half-finished sentences, words written under candlelight in damp bunkers. Some promised to return home soon. Others described the sounds of rockets, the cold of the trenches, the taste of canned bread. Many ended abruptly, never sent, tucked into pockets later found by stretcher bearers. Those letters became the last traces of men whose bodies were shipped back across borders in silence. At airports, in anonymous cargo bays, coffins were unloaded under flags that tried to hide the shame of their deaths. Families opened the packages, wept, and asked questions that had no answers. There were no medals for mercenaries, no monuments raised in their honor. Their names rarely appeared in newspapers except as statistics. Some were buried in their homelands quietly, without military rites. Others remained unidentified, lost in foreign cemeteries, their graves marked only by numbers. They had sold their freedom for blood money, and in the end, lost both their lives and their souls. The world did not remember them as heroes, only as shadows cast by a war larger than themselves. The fate of the mercenary is the purest reflection of war's cruelty. Stripped of ideology, reduced to contracts and paychecks, they reveal war not as a struggle of nations, but as a marketplace of death. Behind every rifle was once a human life, a father, a son, a lover, who carried laughter, dreams, and a home. Before war consumed them, they were simply men. And when the smoke clears, they leave nothing behind but whispers, black bags, and the unanswerable question of why they were there at all. The war dragged on, and with it the silent caravan of mercenaries continued to arrive. Recruiters spread their nets across Europe, America, even Africa. Online advertisements promised salaries of $3,000 a month, bonuses for confirmed kills, and medical insurance. The truth was far harsher: late payments, broken promises, and insurance that meant nothing if the body was left unrecovered on the battlefield. Yet poverty is a ruthless recruiter, and many answered the call, believing they could endure 6 months of hell for a chance at a better life. Few realized that 6 months could be a lifetime cut short. In the east, the fields around Avdiivka, Severodonetsk, and Lysychansk swallowed men like quicksand. Mercenaries who once dreamed of swift victories found themselves pinned down for weeks, drenched in rain, surrounded by the ceaseless thunder of artillery. Sleep came in stolen minutes, interrupted by drones buzzing overhead. They learned to fear not only shells, but silence, for silence meant the enemy was moving. A wrong step in the trenches could trigger a mine. A careless word on the radio could summon a storm of rockets. The war tested not their courage, but their endurance, grinding them down day by day. Those who survived long enough began to change. Their eyes grew hollow, voices dry, jokes rare. They no longer spoke of home, but of contracts, extensions, escape. Some deserted, slipping across borders back into Poland or Romania, their weapons abandoned in muddy foxholes. Others became ghosts of war, drifting from unit to unit, never belonging, never trusted. Ukraine, to them, was neither a homeland nor a cause, merely a stage for survival. On the Russian side, stories of Wagner mercenaries spread like legends. Tales of convicts turned heroes, of men who once killed in alleys now leading charges in ruined cities. Their brutality earned them both fear and a grim kind of respect. Videos circulated of Wagner fighters singing songs before battle, raising skull flags above captured positions. Yet behind the spectacle lay despair. Survivors of Wagner contracts often returned maimed, scarred, haunted. They were granted freedom by the stroke of a pen, but carried prisons within themselves forever. The state used them, praised them briefly, and then discarded them into the shadows of society. Many could not find work, could not return to families, could not sleep without the screams of artillery echoing in their minds. For those who never returned, the war left only fragments: a helmet pierced by shrapnel, a phone filled with unsent messages, a ring carried in a blood-soaked pocket. These objects reached families with the weight of finality. Mothers opened boxes and pressed their faces against metal smelling of rust and gunpowder. Wives stared at uniforms that no longer had warmth inside them. Children asked questions that fathers could never answer. Grief spread quietly, away from headlines, uncounted in official reports. In villages of Africa, in suburbs of Poland, in towns of Georgia, stories were whispered of sons who left for Ukraine or Russia and never came back. Some families received death certificates with names misspelled, causes of death vague. Others never received anything at all. Their loved ones vanished into the fog of war, unmarked and unremembered. For every mercenary counted in statistics, there were dozens whose fates remained unknown, swallowed by trenches and rubble. The moral weight of mercenary life hung heavy. Were they criminals or soldiers? Victims or aggressors? For the governments that hired them, they were useful tools, expendable extensions of policy. For the governments that opposed them, they were terrorists, targets without rights. For families, they were sons, brothers, fathers, and the line between guilt and tragedy blurred. History would not honor them, but history would not forget them either. They became warnings written in blood. Journalists who traced their paths found contradictions. Some mercenaries were brutal killers, intoxicated by violence. Others were naive dreamers, misled by recruiters, caught in wars they did not understand. Interviews in safe houses revealed men with shaking hands who confessed they had never imagined such horror. A Frenchman admitted he came for adventure but spent 3 weeks burying friends in shallow graves. A Brazilian said he thought war would be like in the movies until a mortar round erased half his unit. A Kenyan confessed he had joined to send money home, but his last transfer was smaller than the price of his own coffin. The battlefield became a mirror reflecting the fragility of human life. The mercenary, stripped of ideology, revealed the core of war itself. A marketplace where lives are traded, contracts signed with bullets, and honor dissolved in mud. When mercenaries died, they left no flag, no anthem, no nation to claim them. Only silence. And in that silence, the war whispered its truth, that men are fuel, and once burned, they are gone. As the conflict entered new years, the role of mercenaries remained ambiguous. Some continued to arrive, lured by desperation or greed. Others disappeared into exile, hiding from the shame of what they had done. Their legacy was not victory, nor defeat, but memory. Scattered across fields of wreckage, woven into stories of soldiers who fought beside them or against them. In the end, mercenaries were not heroes, not villains, but reminders. Reminders that war is not glory, but loss. Not destiny, but commerce. Not survival, but decay. And when future generations look back at the war, they may not remember the names of these men, but they will feel their presence in the unmarked graves, in the unanswered letters, in the empty seats at kitchen tables around the world. The mercenary's fate is the most human of fates, to be forgotten, to be erased by the very war they tried to survive. Thank you for listening. If you found this video meaningful, please leave a like, share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue uncovering the deeply human stories hidden within the smoke and fire of war.